Alright guys, so I get this question a lot. I get a lot of emails and I've been noticing more and more comments about starter generators and the cart not starting. So this will be just a quick video to show you what I look for when diagnosing the actual starter generator. Right now we have one here outside of the golf cart. This one is actually out of a Yamaha G16. You can tell by the connector. This is the part that plugs into the harness for the charging circuit. And here's your series connection from your stator to your armature, or your field winding and your armature winding. And then here's your ground and your positive connections. There's your pulley on the front. This starter generator is toast. So I know it's been a while since I posted a video on any golf cart repairs, but right now there's just not that many to do. They'll be starting back up soon now that the spring season is here, and golf cart season will be starting back up real soon. Alright, so I got my gloves on. What we're going to do is I'm going to peel off a couple of these. You can see this one's already has one off, this cover here, the access cover to get to the brushes that are inside. You can see here on the table, this one's already dumping chunks of metal shards and everything, so that's how I know that this starter generator is toast. But just as an example, let's show you how we check the brushes. So you got to get these rubber covers off, and they come off fairly easily. You don't really even need a screwdriver in most cases. You just got to get underneath them and peel them off, and try not to breathe the carbon dust because it doesn't taste that good, and I'm sure it's probably not good for you. But yeah, just these rubber covers. Remember, when they're going back on the rounded side, you can see how this side is rounded. This side has got the notches in it. This one has a tab. This goes towards the aluminum case, so it would go on like this. The more squared off edge faces the pulley. But as you can see inside this starter generator, we have our brushes, which, well, here's one brush, and then the brush tab. So right here we have the retention spring, okay? This spring is what holds the carbon brush down against the armature of the starter generator. And this one here, the top of the brush is actually down below the metal guide here. All right, so this right here is the brush guide, okay? And you can see the brush here is down below the top of the brush guide. Typically new brushes will sit about probably an 1/8, 3/16 of an inch proud or higher than the brush guide. And that's usually what tells you that the brushes are brand new. As you can see, this one is a little bit lower than where it should be. So we know that the brush is wore out and it's just not making good contact. Because after a while, the braided wire that comes off of the side of the brush will bottom out against this this brush guide, and that will cause it to not be able to recess anymore, and that will stop it from making contact with the armature. Okay, so you can see inside this one here, this one has a lot more crud and contamination in it, but it's also, you'll probably see that, you could see that it is still sitting lower than the edge of the brush guide. I know it's kind of a weird angle, and that the brush is low. Okay, I'll knock the carbon out, and you can see this one here is also below the brush guide. I'm hoping you can see that pretty good. I know it's a little tough sometimes to see these things. So what I'll do is I'm going to remove the brush, and we'll show you what it looks like. You should always use the appropriate size screwdriver head to remove these, because these screws do, see, this one here doesn't want to back out for me. These screws do strip very easily, so you got to make sure that you use the correct screwdriver tip. I prefer to use the flathead because it does, for some reason, give me a little bit more bite. Okay, there we go. See, this one did not want to come out. So you take, because when they get hot, they just don't come apart. So you take this screw out. There's the screw. And then you have your brush contact, okay, among other components. I have to bend that back out of the way. All right, now I know this is a little tricky to see. So I've removed this screw right here, top of the camera here. So I removed the screw out of here, and this part here, this is the contact on the brush. So now I'm going to remove the brush from the starter generator by grabbing the braid and just lifting it out. Now you can see the spring here is wanting to lift out too. So if you can get the spring to lift out separately, which would be really good, but it doesn't really matter at this point. I mean, for this starter generator, since it's toast, I'm just going to pull it out. But if you can grab the tab of the spring with a screwdriver, I'll show you here. See that tab? See the spring right here on top? If you can grab it with a screwdriver and pull it back and hold it there, you can change this brush out without having to fight with that spring to change it out again. So here you see how long that brush is? That brush is toast. The grooves that are carved into the face of this brush right here, they should be a finer groove, and they're pretty coarse. So that tells me that these are definitely getting eaten up by the starter generator's armature. I will show you what a brand new brush looks like. Let's get this one out here so we can take a look at it. Like I said, this was the second set of brushes that I put in this in a matter of a month. See how I'm taking the screw out here? Careful not to drop it inside. Because that does happen. And then we grab the braided line that goes to the brush. And then I'm going to see if I can show you here. Hold the spring back with the screwdriver. If you could do this coordinatedly, you can basically pull this brush out and drop the new one in without losing that. See, now you would drop the new one in, like so, and then release the spring and it would snap right onto it. But since we're not saving this starter, we're going to just pull it out. See, and you can see how short that is. See this one here? See how those coarse grooves cut into it? Here's the top of the brush right here. You can see that it has that notch in it. And that notch slopes towards the spring. So the spring is on this side, okay? So the spring is going to coil and want to close on it this way, okay? So the spring is going to want to sit and glide right into that slot and help push it down. If you put them in backwards, it's going to short out, so you don't want to do that. So you got to make sure you put it in right. Here's the braided line that comes out of the side of the brush, which connects to this hoop here, and then that screws down into there. They are wearing evenly, but they wore out very quick. Now let me show you what a brand new brush looks like. Okay, so here's an up-close view of what a brand new starter generator brush looks like. You can see the height difference. Now keep in mind, these things are fragile. They're not exactly something you want to go throwing around and banging around on hard surfaces, because they will break. They're only carbon. All right, so here you can see what a brand new brush looks like compared to a wore out brush. The wore out brush is the one that's the shortest. The newest one is the longer one. Here's the new one, here's the old one. And then also there is a wear mark on the new brush, you can see here. See that slot that's cut into it right there? Right there. That's when it gets to that point, it's basically time to change them out. So when these are wore out, this thing will not crank over. Many times it will not charge if your brushes are wore out. So that's something to keep in mind. And there's really no need to replace the starter generator unless you find that these are falling apart and in pieces, in big chunks, or you're seeing that the armature is destroyed and wore out. All right, so say you take the brushes out and you drop the spring. As you can see, the spring is kind of down inside now, and it's all the way down to basically it's seated all the way down to the middle of the brush carrier. So what I do is, laying on the bench, it's best to take the generator out of the cart. Do this on the bench, it's so much easier. Okay, so I'm going to try to do my best here to show you this. It's going to be a little tricky. There's a couple different ways you can do this. You can use a flathead screwdriver, if you can get a small enough tipped one. Get in there and get underneath it and hopefully hold it back long enough to allow yourself to drop the new brush in. See how I'm able to hold that, the tip of that? And then sometimes you can grab it with your fingers and hold it back. See, I'm holding the tip back. And then you got to make sure, see there's that angled part, that has to go towards that spring. And then the braided wire goes away from it. You drop your brush in to the carrier and then release the spring, and then there you go. Okay, so now you can see how the brush is standing much more proud of the brush carrier compared to what the wore out one looks like. Typically, you'll want to change your brushes when the top of the brush is even with the top of the brush carrier. But I always recommend removing the starter generator from the cart. You can do this in most cases with the starter generator still on the golf cart, but believe me, it is a lot easier just to remove it. It's so much easier and faster to do this on the bench than it is to try to do this in the cart. I always remove them from the cart when I'm changing them. It's just what I do. It's a lot faster, it's a lot simpler. But as you can see, that's how that is basically done. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. Don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. Go check out my website, kevinsgolfcarts.com, where I carry new starter generators, brushes, pretty much everything for your golf cart. And if I don't have it, send me an email what you're looking for, and I could probably get it for you.